Hello and welcome. I'm Carrie Thomas of Touchwood Plants, and I'm absolutely crazy about Aquilegias, granite bonnets and columbines. Let me introduce you here to Touchwood Treasures, which are the double yellow ones that I have been breeding for many years now. And when I say golden, they're yellow doubles, but they're red and yellow and pink and yellow doubles. So let me show you what has happened while I created this collection. So I've always grown the granny's bonnets here in the UK, the ones that are basically based on Aquilegia vulgaris. And there's a huge range of colours. As you can see here also, different leaf or foliage effects, and lots of double forms. However, I was also becoming more and more enamoured of the American ones, the big, huge, in fact, large flowers, long spurred, thick ones like this Aquilegia chrysantha, Aquilegia caerulea, and all of the hybrids. They don't last very long in my garden, or some of them don't, but some of them last longer than others. And I was beginning to enjoy the size of them, whereas before I thought they were a bit overblown, but now I've been converted. Also, there was Aquilegia formosa and a lot of other bright red and yellow bird-pollinated ones from America, both from the Canada side and from the US. And I wondered whether I could get this bright red into some of my double forms, whereas the red colour that we have here in the UK with the vulgaris cultivars tends to be a sort of a plummy red. I'd also discovered the Spring Magic range, these short hybrids but with large flowers on, and they were doing particularly well in my garden. And then something strange happened. I grew some seed from an exchange, and I got some seed from Lorna's Yard in the US, and there were two plants of a yellow double. They were rather different, each one of them, but I was enamoured and I thought, these are amazing, these are fantastic. Unfortunately, I think one plant had one flower on and one had two flowers on, and there were no seed at all from those plants, and the plants both died. So it was very exciting to see those, but so what? It really didn't matter. And then I happened to grow a red and yellow double. It's quite a small red and yellow double, about the size of the vulgaris ones. And I was interested in this, but I wasn't excited. Life's too short for only having a plant that will flower 1 year and then die, which is what a lot of the American types do in my garden here in Swansea in Wales. However, the next year, the plant was still there, and it was bigger and it was stronger. And I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, that's the second year that one has flowered. And I started to get interested. This was a long-lived plant, or at least 2 years, not one. And in fact, this plant did last many years. It was probably 8 or 10 years old. So therefore, I started getting back to breeding and saving seed and breeding with other ones and trying to get the yellow doubles that I'd seen originally. And as I hope that you can see, I have managed that. And they're all shapes and sizes. Some are larger, some are smaller, some are facing outwards, some are facing slightly upwards, some are drooping down. And often you get height as well. Aquilegias here tend to be about 3 foot, less than a metre tall. But this one, well, I'm 5.5 foot. That's probably at a slight angle there, but you're easily looking at this in eye to eye with an Aquilegia because you've got hybrid vigor. You can see at the bottom here, the seed pods of a different plant that has already gone over. Because the other advantage of these American sorts are they do flower later than the vulgaris ones, but the 2 seasons overlap. It means I get a good 6 weeks of really good Aquilegia flowers in my garden. So that's that lovely one, about 5 foot or more high. I'm not going to speak all of the way through. A lot of the time I'm going to let the pictures speak for themselves. And I'm going to go through fairly rapidly because you can always go back and look at any particular flowers that you were interested in. I love this because it's a whole habitat in itself. Not only have you got your Aquilegia flower, but you've got cuckoo spit here, and there's the spittle bug. You've got a tiny little snail there hiding away. You've got an aphid, which is probably parasitized by a small parasitic wasp. And hiding down here, not easy to see, but you can just see that there's a leg over the edge of that sepal. We've got a little spider hiding away. Okay, so not all of those big American hybrids that I was breeding were large flowers. This is very small. This is very dainty. There it is in a close-up. And with these smaller ones, I have put these in what looks a bit like a vase, but it isn't, because if you notice, that vase is never going to stay upright. It is, in fact, a brooch. It's pinned on, and so I can actually wear fresh flowers in my buttonhole. So letting the photos speak for themselves, but lighter coloured yellows as well as darker ones. And I like the red edging to this petal. Some people say that there's a problem when you grow double flowers because it's no good for the bees because then they can't get any pollen or nectar. Not so. The bumblebees have no problem. Normally you only have 5 of these petals on an Aquilegia flower. And this is being doubled to 10 going round in a circle and 3 or more layers here. So you've got at least 30 petals. And as you can see by this young lady, there is no worries at all about them being able to get their nectar reward. They may not be able to get the ones right down here, but they'll get the ones closer to the edge. Now we've got pink spurs on these. I call these blushed yellows. And so I wanted to also have ones with more and more pink on them and different shades of pink, starting with the palest. Sorry, let's go back. So you can see the size here. These are the larger flowers. The white label that you can see here is where I'm breeding them, and there'll be another talk on YouTube with the plant breeding of Aquilegias. Some of the pinks are quite orangey or apricotty. Let's have a look at those. The camera can sort of lie here. It looks as if I've got another really tall one. I'm sitting on the path. So in fact, this isn't as tall as most of the Aquilegias. This is certainly above knee height, but nowhere like 3 foot. Perhaps 2 foot, perhaps just a bit under. There it is in the garden. Another bumblebee, just to prove it wasn't a fluke. Coming into more dark pink red colours now with the yellow. And a rose colour. I love the petals here, yes, really heart-shaped. And this one's so heart-shaped, it's almost sort of double frill at the end. So we missed one. There we go. So this one's got a lot more pink to it. And a really dark colour, pink, red. Okay, so I wanted then to also start selecting ones that were much more red and yellow rather than the pinky or rosy colours. I love all of these spurs coming off. One that looks up slightly. Now we're getting to that truer red, aren't we? That American continent red that was found in Formosa. And then some of the really dark colours. And this one has got quite a lot of red compared to yellow, whereas some of them have got much less. And this one takes that to the extreme, so that the whole of the outside of the petal is red, and only tucked inside and the very edge is yellow. You can see that sort of one at a different angle here. And again, this one looks much redder on the outside. It's the angle that I've taken it. You're looking at the internal parts of the yellow petals, not the red outsides. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed some of those red and yellow doubles that I've been breeding. But, and it's a big but, I was still very much hankering after those Carulia, Aquilegia Carulia type colours, but I didn't want blue and white, not when I could have yellow in it, which is one that's never, yellow isn't found in Aquilegia vulgaris. So yellow to me was quite delightful. So how on earth was I going to get yellow into this? And I tried and tried again, and I couldn't do it. And I think I've discovered the reason why. This was one of the earlier interbreedings that I had. It started off with a double form of William Guinness, which is an almost black and white double. But I had bred it with a yellow double. And as you can see, the buds themselves, as they start to open, have definitely got a yellowy tinge. And it's only as they really mature and open that they become totally white with the almost black. In fact, it's an even darker colour than what it shows there. Here's another one, which is much more pronounced, and this is, it was breeding a double indigo and white, vulgaris sort, with a double yellow. So you can see there's quite a strong yellow on the buds, and then it fades to white. Or does it? If you can look, that's just a slight hint of cream there. Now, I think the other thing was that I really wanted blue and yellow. But can you also see that when I've got the yellow, the blue has become purpley? What I believe happens is that the yellow isn't just here. The yellow is through the whole of the petal. But where it's purple or indigo, it's masked. And the yellow blends with the indigo to form more of a purple colour. As it turns out, I have never been able to get a blue and white, a blue and yellow double Aquilegia. However, I am beginning to, the closest you can get is this hint of a lilac colour with the yellow. More of a purple here, but it's a strong yellow, you see. The lighter yellows will give you more of the lilac shade, like this one. And again, different forms, isn't it, of the double. So this is what I'd call a frilly double. Though beware, sometimes the first flowers will be less well-formed than later ones, so you're likely to get more double flowers in the later flowers, more doubling of the flowers. So again, the lilac and yellow. So, okay, I've never got my blue and yellow, but these are pretty desirable. Stronger purple. And a really strong purple. But just like with that red, where the red came right the way down on the outside of the petal and the yellow was only on the edge and on the inside, you can see that's happening here. And also the yellow isn't very intense, it's more of a creamy yellow. It's a stronger yellow in the bud, which you can't really see here. That's the whole plant. I think in its first year of flowering. I think you can see here that that's probably a stronger yellow than here. Not easy to see, but you can imagine it. And then a different effect. So we've got a good strong colour here, but with a bit of a faded whitish line on it. And also, whereas the other one had purple coming right the way down through to the end, this one only has sort of purple washed spurs. So beautiful. With a darker yellow and darker purple. An indigo purple. And much more of a red colour here. A reddish purple, burgundy. And all of a sudden, I really did start to think, well, hang on, I haven't got my blue and yellows, but wow, these purple and yellow doubles are fantastic. And all of them are so different. Now, can you see the deformities on these spurs? they look sort of chewed because they have been chewed. There are bumblebees that are going to be able to get in and get the nectar this way. But if you can see, the petal is shaped a little bit like a horn of plenty upside down. So the ones here, they won't be able to so easily get their tongues in. Also, these are quite long spurs, and only the longest tongued bumblebees will be able to get them. We've got over 22 species of bumblebees in the UK, but an awful lot of them haven't got long enough tongues, especially for these extremely long spurs. So therefore, some of them are able to bite through, and they will bite through, and their shorter tongues will have no problems whatsoever on getting the nectar. Of course, all of the next bumblebees will also do exactly the same thing, and you end up with these deformed spurs instead of those beautiful ones that we've seen earlier. I would always get my national collections of Aquilegia. This was my second national collection, recognising the breeding I was doing, the hybridisation. And every year I would get them put into a magazine, which meant that one year the photos would be taken, and then the next year the blurb would be written and the photos there from the year before. And there was certainly one year whereby I just phoned them up and said, sorry, it's not worth coming. All of the flowers are deformed. Once the bees know this little trick, then they really can't be bothered to go in the business end and do what they're supposed to and produce all of the seed that I want and to sell. So I actually had to cancel one of the magazine articles that year. I think it didn't matter because we got photos that had been taken previously into a Japanese gardening magazine, which is quite fun. So when you see these deformed spurs, you'll know the naughty bumblebees have been stealing the nectar rather than doing what they're supposed to. You can see the deformity there as well. You can actually see almost like two little holes there. I think this, out of all of the plants I bred, was one, if not the favourite one. Absolutely fantastic coloration. And I love the way that it hangs so elegantly. You know, it really is a sort of U-shaped flowering stem there holding the flower. And it was a good, strong plant. Having said that, I lost all of my plants. The new disease in the UK, Aquilegia downy mildew, which came to me in 2014. Unfortunately, it was the same year that I think that all of my Aquilegias were on Gardener's World, or perhaps that was 213. But yes, so I lost everything. I can't begin to tell you, I lost my plants, my passion, my business, my income. We even had to move house. I didn't even want to garden anymore. As it turns out, we did move to a house with a slightly larger garden, but hadn't been developed at all. And so I am enjoying putting some more Aquilegias in my garden and getting started. So I hope you've enjoyed the ones on the sort of purple and yellow. What about even darker ones? So yes, I have got some Aquilegias in my garden, and I have now started selling seeds again, but I don't know for how long I'm going to be able to keep the plants disease free, and I don't know how long I'll be able to do seed selling. So you can see the size. We're talking of large flowers. some of the ones with just the colour inside, but much darker than what we were looking at before. So these are almost all yellow, but with sepals. These are sepals rather than petals, or petaloid sepals probably is the best way of putting it. But the petals themselves are just about all yellow, and it's only the sepals that are purple. And now we're getting to almost black and yellow, the darkest colours possible. And if anything, they're always darker in real life than the camera, that my camera can show, or I can get it to show. So almost black and yellow doubles. So I hope that you've enjoyed seeing those. These are some of my darker ones. No, they're not. They're some of the darker ones I have had. And who knows which ones I'll be able to start growing again. I've got a few of my seed there, but it'll be a slow progress, and I'll never have as many as I used to. Okay, so the question is, how do these bright flowers fit into the cottage garden style that I grow mine in? And I think they do really well. This is in June, so rather later. There is still one of the Aquilegia vulgaris double indigo ones over there, but this is where the American ones have come into their own, because it's slightly later in the season, so they're going full tilt. And you've got scarlet with pink with orange. You wouldn't really want it in your house, perhaps, but somehow in the garden we get away with it. For the other gardening aficionados watching here, we've got sweet rocket or hesperus. We've got some ornamental onions, and this is geranium palmatum, which around here in Swansea, South Wales, is more or less hardy. Now, there we go. I've got a scarecrow at the back. This is my nursery bed. Normally, every winter, I will plant all of the nursery row Aquilegias into individual pots, wait until they flower, and decide where I'm going to put them in the garden. And then one year, my son gets married. That's fine. He gets married in Florida. So I said, but don't marry in May or June, please. I can't afford to go away at that time. That's my busiest time, with perhaps 1,500 new plants, and deciding which ones I'm going to keep and which ones I'm going to sell, and watering them all, and they're all in pots. So he didn't do that. Instead, it was the end of April, which also put the heebie-jeebies at me. So basically what I did was, when it came to my nursery rows, I left about 1 in 4 plants in the garden in the nursery rows, but well spaced out. And this is the result. So all of these are first year flowering plants. And so, okay, here we've probably got 2 plants together, or possibly even more going that way. But you can see how big some of the plants can get in just 1 year from seed. And some of them are quite short and tucked in amongst the others, and some of them are very tall indeed. Again, you've got the hybrid vigor. You're probably nearer 4 foot than 3 foot. And also, this is my front garden. So again, it's later on in the season. We're talking of mid to late June now. And so all of the, or almost all of the Aquilegia vulgaris cultivars are finished over and done. But these big American double yellow forms are really coming into their own. So I hope that I've enticed and encouraged you. As I say, I have got my seed list back up now for Touchwood Treasures of their golden doubles. Just look for Touchwood plants and then Aquilegia seed. To show you what I used to have, this was before I lost everything to Aquilegia downy mildew. And there is another YouTube video on Aquilegia downy mildew, so do look that up. It's so important that we stop it from spreading, even if we can't control it once it's got a hold. And at the moment, it's only found in Germany and in the UK. So everybody else ought to be looking and keeping a close eye on their plants in their gardens overseas. So these are the ones that I've got on my website. I used to have Shooting Stars Mix, the yellow doubles, Dragon's Breath. Well, got to have dragons. I come from Wales. We've got the Welsh dragon, of course, as the flag. So Dragon's Breath, all of the red and yellows, and the pink and yellows coming in here as well with Volcano. And Sunrise Surprises was the pink and yellow doubles. And then we get to the darker ones, some of which I've shown you. Sultan's Glory with the purple and yellow doubles. Night Lights were black and yellow. And then Black and Bruises were the two of those together. Having said that, as I'll reiterate, I have not got this selection nowadays after having lost them all. But if you ever bought seed from me and you got interesting flowers from my own seed, I'd love to do a further exchange with you and get even more resources into my own gene pool here in this new garden. You're always welcome to visit my garden in Gosain and Swansea, especially during the Aquilegia season. So thank you very much. I hope you've been fascinated by the selection of the Aquilegia double yellow granny's bonnets or columbines. I'm Carrie Thomas with Touchwood Plants, but this has been brought to you through the Ranunculaceae group of the Hardy Plant Society, and they also do a seed exchange every year that's open to everybody, certainly at the moment in 2023. So thank you very much, and don't forget to see all of the others in the Aquilegia series here on YouTube. Bye, see you again.